Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're watching us from. Welcome to this special program we're having here on blackdoctor.org. Um, you know, I know y'all have seen my face many times here doing a myriad of programs on Black Doctor. And one of the things we're always talking about is healing, how we heal the body. We've talked about hypertension, we talk about cholesterol, we talk about cancers and all types of a myriad of health and wellness topics. And then, but one of those things that we touch on somewhat, but we don't really touch on it a great deal, is the mind and that mental health and what role that plays ultimately in our healing. And so tonight we have a very, very special guest here that's going to talk about her journey to healing, her journey to not only her personal healing, but also helping others heal as well. And so she moved from healthcare to, and her book is about mental health care. And it's a really, really fascinating story. So I want y'all to come on this journey with me as I introduce our guest, Dr. Paulina Van. Welcome to the program, Dr. Van.
Well, thank you. And thank you for that lovely introduction.
No, it's well deserved, and so I gotta give three things for our audience to watch. To three instructions for our audience. First thing is I want y'all to let us know where you're watching from. We like to know where people are watching from all over the globe. So make sure you drop in the comment section where you're watching from. Number two, if you know somebody that could use this information and talk about being mindful and listening to yourselves, and we're gonna get into all of that today. If you know somebody can do that could use this information, share the show and tag a friend and let them know what we've got going on. And finally, if you have any questions, make sure you put those in the comment section as well. We love to have your feedback because this is an interactive show. We want your feedback. So please drop any comments or questions that you have in the comment section. So that's all the particulars. Welcome, Dr. Van. I guess my first question really is, I understand you are a nurse by training. Uh, how did you get into nursing and what led you to that field before we even get to the whole mindfulness and the book?
Okay. Well, this is something I love to talk about. So I've been a registered nurse for 46 years, and I've known that I wanted to be a nurse since I was age 10. My grandmother lived with us, and I came home from school one day. She didn't answer. The paramedics went in. She was, unconscious, went to the hospital. And back in the 60s, they didn't allow children in the hospital, but I begged and begged, and I was allowed to just go to the doorway of her ward. And I watched how the nurse just cared for my grandmom who was in a coma, the way she touched her, the way she talked to her. And I said, whatever that is, I want to do that for life. And so that was my only path.
Well, I'm going to say this, you said 46 years. Was that a slip?
Oh no, I've been a nurse since 1975.
Wow. Well, yes. Well, whatever you're drinking and eat, let us know that because you look wonderful. And it's fabulous. 46 years, wonderful. So you had this wonderful experience as a child that impressed you as from a nurse that just left a lasting impression on you.
Yes.
So talk to me about your nursing career. How did that progress?
Wow. Over the 46 years, most of my time has been spent in administration, either in the hospital, in community health, home health, and eventually academia. I spent the first 4 years clinically, but I always kept up with the practice. And so I just had a fabulous career. I can't think of anything that I would do differently. Hospital, bedside nursing, administrator, now professor. I have an earned doctorate, so I conduct research. So it's been wonderful. And now I've become an author of a book. I have a lot of journal articles, but to have this major project come to being is pretty sweet.
And that's really what I really kind of want to literally roll up my sleeves or figuratively roll up my sleeves and get into that, because I'm like, you had this wonderful nursing career, right? 46 years, You're in nursing, you've reached the pinnacle of your profession. Most people would have been like, I'm good. Like I've done that. I've lived a great, wonderful life, you
Mhm.
know. But then something changed. Can we talk about what happened right before you that led you to writing your book?
Absolutely. Um, and I love telling this story. Um, a series of things happened in my life. When I think of the most recent, and that would be in 2014, my brother almost died, and he was in a coma. And when he woke up from the coma, so he's in the coma about 6 days, and when he woke up, he looked at me and he said, "Are you still working the way that you always have?" And he thought it was 2004. So we're 10
Mhm.
years. And it just made, he said, "And if you are, you have become your work." And
Mm.
when we thought he was dying, family was coming to visit, and people had gotten married, had babies, and all these were like strangers to me because I was immersed solely in my work. I didn't have good balance, and so I made a commitment once he recovered that I was going to immerse myself in self-care. So I began by meditating and doing mindfulness and really
Mhm.
getting trained in those areas. And so, do we want to speed up? Do we want to go forward and
Well,
tell you?
okay, so 2014, your brother's he wakes up and he gives you what sounds like an epiphany, right? He speaks a word, as we say, in church circles, he spoke a word into you,
Yeah,
and that word seems to have landed. And so that moved you to what next?
move me to learning how to meditate,
Mhm.
um, mindfulness exercises, becoming a spa junkie or a spa expert. These things I always loved, but I didn't take time out to
Right.
it. And then I left my high position in academic administration. Though I had accomplished so much, I was losing myself.
Okay.
And I was assigned to a job, a new role in my home institution, where I would develop with a team a program that focuses on self care, self love, and
Wow.
that began the journey.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I know there was a seminal moment that got you to writing. So now you've had the brother, and now you start. Okay, I'm learning more about exploring meditation, self care, self love, taking care of yourself. So and now, how do you move from that? You're developing programs. How do you move from that to writing a book?
Excellent. Um, the other thing that I want to add to this whole mix is 1995, when I was in my doctoral program, I began a program of research with women who had pregnancy loss, African American women who've had pregnancy loss. I became aware of that phenomena or situation, reality. I'm here in California. So,
Mhm.
and I became aware of that when I was consulting for the state. And I'm a fixer. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to earn my doctorate degree so I can fix this. And very early on, I realized that there were so many factors that impacted pregnancy loss among
Mhm.
African Americans: social, political, cultural, you name it. And so um, I turned, instead of trying to solve that problem, I said, it's happening, and I want to do something to impact the women's and the families' lives after pregnancy loss. And so I have conducted, I'm getting to the point though. I'm getting to the point, Alice.
Oh, are you fine?
I'm
Take your
okay. I'm
time.
okay. So, what I did, I conducted research among African Americans. I began with African American women, and that's what my dissertation is all about. Then I was invited to do it in Mexico. So I did the research in Mexico, came back to the United States, did it with Euro Americans, uh, Asian Americans, etc. And I developed a theory about how women cope after pregnancy loss. And I've traveled in numerous countries teaching healthcare professionals and those who support women who have pregnancy loss on how to help them cope and how to help them heal. And pregnancy loss is a lifelong, it doesn't end. A woman, if she has another baby, it's not going to be replaced by the new baby. So I say that to say I went November 2019. I went to a small workshop led by two young African American women about pregnancy loss and developing policy around it. And they began the workshop. It was only a 2-hour workshop, and they began the workshop with a meditation. And then they said, and now we want you to drop into your heart and write for 3 minutes about whatever your heart is saying to you. Okay. So you got to remember, I'm a researcher, analytical, and this person told me, drop into my heart.
Right.
And I did. And the first poem I wrote is entitled It Hurts. And it talks about my childhood abuse.
So I'm just, first thing I want to say, just kind of give people some perspective. The maternal mortality rate in Black and brown women is very, very high, and still is very, very high. I think the maternal mortality rate for a Black and Hispanic women at age 35 and up, or for white women age 35 and up, is the same as Black and brown women at ages like 22 and 23. And so there's a significant gap in maternal mortality rate. So thank you for taking on that challenge, even back in 1995, and even we're still working on that today here in 2021. The second thing is the fact that when you went into your heart, you went deep, because a lot of times when people have past histories of abuse and trauma, they tend to bury it and don't want to bring it back up. So how was that moment like for you to go there, touch it, and then to write about it?
I didn't realize so they only gave us 3 minutes to write. And
Right.
I didn't realize, first of all, I had buried that. How old was I? I had buried that for over 60 years. Okay. So I didn't realize what I had done until it was time for everybody to start sharing. And
Okay.
when I shared mine, there was silence, there were tears, there was a lot going on.
Right.
And then I realized that I had unearthed something that had been buried in me for decades, but also it touched everybody in that circle in some way, either their personal experience or them knowing about someone who's had the experience.
Right. And so you write this poem that impacts not only yourself, but the people that are in the room with you.
Yes.
And then how did that continue? How did that healing, thank you, Monica, how did that healing continue?
Absolutely. So that was November 2019. And I was also in a Caritas coach program. Caritas means love and caring. And it was developed by Dr. Jean Watson, who is a nurse. And matter of fact, I'm in a postdoc with her right now. So my work about self-care and self-love continues.
Right.
But so that was November. In this program, all online since we were in COVID, it was April 2020 that I responded to a post where one of my classmates asked me, she said, how did you get so Caritas literate? Meaning, how did I become so literate so quickly in just a 5-month period? And then I responded with the poem, the heart will. And the heart will basically says the heart will nourish you so that you can flourish. And
Mm,
then they just kept coming. And can I explain how? Because I don't create these.
right,
I
right.
think that's one of
Please,
the
please,
points.
please do.
Yeah. So what happens when one of these poems, I now call them regalos or gifts because they were given to me and now I have to give them to the world. Um, Energy, that's what I'll call it. An energy or warmth starts in my heart and goes up into my head. And then the words, the title appears, then the words, first four phrases come to me. And then there is this energy that carries me to my computer to type. So I can't record it and I can't longhand write it. I have to type it.
Okay.
And these poems come out fully formed. And the way you'll see them in the book are unedited. It's how it came to me. And I
Mhm.
attribute it to my creator.
Absolutely. So you're basically becoming a vessel
Yes.
for these words and the to come out. And when it hits you at different times, it hits you when that you feel that warm feeling like, hey, I got to get to my computer. That's got to be an awesome feeling.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up. Um, if you pay attention, and I paid attention, if you pay attention to it, um, it can be overwhelming. It will not allow me to do anything else until I get these words out. And so I really think it was my purpose. But on the other hand, Ellis, these promptings, I don't think I'm special or anything like, well, yeah, wait a minute. Let me take that back. I am special.
You
I'm
are,
amazing.
you are
Okay. We gotta, say that to ourselves. We gotta show ourselves self-love and appreciation, etc. But
absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
just trying to say that I'm not an enigma and that people in the audience, they do have, and you have these promptings, and you can elect to respond to them or you can elect to ignore them.
Right.
And so I just happened to be in a place where my heart was open and receptive, and I loved myself enough and I trusted myself enough to allow myself to be used as a vessel.
Absolutely. So if you're just joining us, we are talking with Dr. Paulina Van, and she is telling us of her incredible journey with about how she went from being a wonderful nurse and educator and administrator and had a wonderful career, 46 plus years. And now it takes a turn to where she's now becoming a vessel for writing and about personal healing and finding that space, the mindfulness moment that says, hey, here's how, and of buried pain that a lot of us might have. And we could talk about our own personal abuse or things that have happened to us, uh, that she took her personal pain and is now using her words to help heal others. And so, and she wrote a wonderful work. And I want people to really recognize the lesson here. And we've got more to talk about. We got more to share with Dr. Van, but the lesson here really is about finding that space for yourself to where whether it's well, you can call it meditation, you can call it prayer, you can call that space to where you're opening up yourself to a higher purpose, a higher cause, a reaching out. And then if you can tap into that, even if it's for your own healing, then that is going to catapult you further to the life that you want to be. So I just had to get that moment out there, and this is this is so wonderful. But so you're having these moments, these kind of moments where you're writing these poems. How did you get to the point where you say, you know what, I need to share these with the world? Because were you sharing them when you were getting those moments, or you were just typing them in your computer and leaving them as it was? How did you get to the point where you decided this needs to be a book?
Well, as I said, there was a 5 month gap between number one and number two. So it wasn't until after we were in the midst of COVID that, they kept coming. And I want to say about this thing that happens to me. I could be cooking, I could be getting dressed, I could be on a phone call, and all that has to stop when this comes to me.
Right.
Um, when Okay, so I have at least dozen mentors. Some I asked to be a mentor to me, others self-appointed themselves to me because of my drive and my work ethic and what they saw in me and what I saw in them. And uh, Dr. Jean Watson is my current postdoc, one of my current postdoc mentors. And I started talking to her about, these poems, and then I started talking to other people about them. The only one that I read the poems to was my husband. So if
Mm,
one came to me at 2 o'clock in the morning after I was done, I woke him up and I would read it to him, and he would say, "Oh, it's fabulous!" And he's my husband, so I thought, he's just talking. But then I was brave, and I showed it. I didn't show it to them to any medical um, healthcare providers or any of my friends or family who are in health, because I wanted to see, does it really have an impact on someone whose focus, expertise, worldview does not necessarily have the expertise of health? And it was
right.
amazing, Alice. It's amazing the feedback I got. And I just want to say this to you, that when you were summing up my last share,
Uh-huh.
I started getting goosebumps because you're
Wow.
using the language that I use. And it is so heartwarming to have that happen. Yeah, I had someone review the poems, and his review was in a poetic form, and he said, "I don't know how this happened. This happened after I read your work." So yeah.
It reminds me of that show. What was that? Touched by an Angel, right? And
Yeah.
so back in the day, maybe I just dated myself by talking about that show.
I don't
But
even remember that show. I'm too young to remember that.
I think it was Della Reese
Yes. Yes.
was the principal actor, and so that was one of the things. So, and I think that's a good summation of what's happening. You don't sometimes when we're being used as a vessel, and we talked about that tonight. Sometimes when we're used as a vessel, it's not to be questioned, right? We just, okay, this is a path that I'm on, and this is a path that I'm being led down. And so, you know, whether you believe in God, whatever higher power, just use me, right? And I appreciate the fact that you are open enough to not only to be used in that way, because a lot of people, we get that tapping on the shoulder, right, that hey, I may be doing this, and some people call it intuition, some people call it my conscience. There's a myriad of names for it, myriad of words for it, but
Mhm.
really it's that nudging, life nudging, to say, you know what, there's a better purpose for you, and you need to go in this direction. And so I applaud you for listening and being open enough to move in that direction.
Well, remember, I hid it for over 60 years.
And there's
So
that.
yeah, so there had to be, and if I can just share anything that I've learned from this journey is, live, open your heart, um, take that chance, because and Ellis stole my phrase earlier in the show, but I'm going to say it again anyway, because when you open your heart, you
Yeah,
live happier, you live healthier, you can fulfill your dreams and your goals. And
yeah,
yeah, you may get hurt, but you just move on. It's life, because the hurt can't last forever. There's a saying, trouble don't last. How's it go? Trouble don't last
and
forever.
all that's always. That's right.
Oh, okay, thank you. Trouble don't last always.
Oh,
It's
that's
not
always.
gonna always be that way. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. So now you had the pandemic happen, so you're able to write more often. You're getting these feelings more often. Now you've got how many poems?
Okay, so by June, I graduated from the program on June the 22nd, and by between November 19th and June 2020, I had written 66. I have this thing about not counting them, not reading them once I wrote them.
Okay,
My mentor gave me this. She said, "Don't treat it like an academic exercise because I'm a researcher, so I'm gonna count and I'm gonna analyze." No, 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 don't do that. And
right.
so June I had 66, and then they came until I had 98 in September, and then nothing happened in October, November, December, and then January I wrote the 99 and 100, and
Okay,
then that's when I decided to publish the book. But I can I tell the story because
sure. Yeah.
uh, uh, the first poem that's about my childhood abuse ends with "I get to live and love again." Okay, I get
Mm,
to live and love. The last poem, because I kept saying to my mentor, how am I going to know if I'm not being analytical? How am I going to know that it's the last one? Well, Ellis, the last one, and I can't remember, I have 100, but it has to be God's will or something like that. But it ends with the um, the love as a not pseudonym, but you know, it ends with the four last phrases ends with love. And then I knew, I said, this is full circle.
okay.
I began seeking love, and here it is. Mhm.
So it's interesting when you're bringing up that process, and I don't want to, I don't, you don't need to reveal what the trauma was, but I think it would be good because all of us, many people have had some sort of hidden trauma at some point in their life. And so, how was that process of going through it, reliving it a little bit, and getting through it and finding a way to finding that path through it to get to the other side? How was that process, and how can your poetry help people navigate that process?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, so the first one was a shocker that I even remembered and then wrote about it. But as we progress from 2 to 100, my creator and whoever there are different beliefs out there in the audience, which I really respect, but I'm Christian, and so my creator is God, and he took slices. So just think about a big pie. He took slices of my life, 99 more slices, and used it for healing, for inspiration,
Mhm.
um, for motivation, for encouragement. And so this book is actually, we want to call it an ethno autobiography because it's using my life to talk about forgiveness, hope, joy, you name it. You name a life experience, and you're going to find it in this book. And what I have found from my readers is that, and one of the reviewers wrote this, someone that professional colleague, and she said, you cannot read these without seeing yourself
Mhm.
in each of them or in some of them. And so I say this work that was given to the world through me, um, you just open yourself up to find yourself in each of these, and it's going to solve or help you solve, put you on the path to solving whatever the issue is. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, as we're. um, I'd love to, and just for the record, if you're watching us, The to get the book is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So I know we've already had a question. Somebody wants to buy the book. The name of the book is Regala Healing. Regala means gift, right?
Yes, to give a gift. Yes.
And so and that's scrolling across the bottom screen, and we've also put it in the comment section where you can click and buy it. Don't leave the we want to hear. We want you to stay here and watch more of this interview with Dr. Mann. But after the program ends, you definitely click on the link and you can go buy the book directly from her and get that healing on your own. But what I'm saying is, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'd love for you, if you are up to it, read us one of your poems so we can just kind of get a feel for what to expect when we buy your books. We all buy the book. Everybody, I've already laid it out there. Everybody's buying the book, but I'd really love to get that feeling.
Okay. And so, I'm an intuit, so I figured you would ask me to read something. Yeah, and what came to me is that perhaps I should share where I started. So
Okay.
may I share where I started, and then we have an opportunity to see my healing as we meet, in the future. Okay, all right. And so this is the one I wrote November 2019 during that workshop on pregnancy loss, and it's entitled "It Hurts."
Okay.
It hurts because I buried experiences. It hurts because my emotions came through anyway. It hurts because my parents were the culprits. It hurts because I couldn't defend myself. It hurts because the abuse lived in the background, adversely impacting my life. It hurts because I didn't feel lovable. It hurts because feeling unworthy made me accept relationships which were unhealthy. It hurts because I pushed people away who could have been helpful and loving. It hurts because I suffered emotionally most of my life. It hurts because I may have impacted others unknowingly, but now I am healing the hurts. Hurt is fleeting. Hurt is losing power. Hurt is dead, and I get to live and love.
Wow.
Let's take a deep breath.
Right.
Everybody take a deep breath.
The hardest thing about programs and especially when I was on radio was you're not supposed to have dead air, right? It's like that's like the no in any type of program and broadcasting, but it's hard not to, I want to just let that moment breathe. So I really, I really just want to say, thank you. I guess that's the first thing to say is thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being that open, right? And I can see in that moment when you write that poem and you're reading it to people and they're hearing those words, it hurts because, right? And then you say why, and people can relate to those things, right? We can relate to hurt, whether it's by a loved one or a family member, or it just we can all have a relationship. We all have a relationship with hurt, and hurt that we haven't resolved, and hurt that we haven't gotten over. And being able to not only touch that, but share it in such an eloquent way is an amazing gift. And I want to thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So, wow, yeah, okay, all right. I got to get back on. I got to get back on track.
I can read another one to change the energy if you'd like.
Please.
Okay.
All right. You know what?
let me.
We got to talk about.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to read. I realize, and there may be people online that already have the book. So, I realize, and so I'm page 21 of the book. I realize my heart is whole. I realize I'm not what I've been told. I realize love is the seat of my soul. I realize my story has to be told. I realize I make a difference. It is with this essence I continue my journey, loving myself into eternity.
Yes. That's such a self-affirming poem. Like I can read that every morning, right? And just say, because people want to be seen, right? And particularly people of color, right? So we're talking about people of color and talk about our experience in this country. That was the impetus behind the book, Invisible Man.
Mm,
Is that Black people are invisible until we're not, right? And so to talk about have that poem just kind of speak to that and saying, hey, what was resonating with me was I want to be seen, and this is my coming out, right? And I'm going to be seen and heard in a genuine way, not a stereotypical way, not in a judgmental way, but in a way that is truly and authentically me, right?
yeah,
And so being able to do that is such a gift, and being able to share that is such a gift. And I think people need to hear that on a daily basis. They need to speak to themselves and speak life into themselves. And that poem does that for them. And they can just read that to themselves every day. I need to speak life into to myself to be able to share.
yes, absolutely. That's what the 99 do. I love the words you use. Where are they coming from, Ellis?
If I'm being 100% transparent, they're coming from my own pain. You know,
Yes.
they're coming from my own pain, and I know this is probably not where this show was going to go, but I would say that um, that personal pain it leads you down different paths. The path that led me down was mental health. So my training is in mental health because I wanted to know why
Mhm.
those things that were happening to me actually happened, right? And I wanted to be able to define it and give it some real, some understanding, right? And so uh, it my intellectual curiosity made me try to figure out what it was all about. But I think that ultimately, that's what drove me to that space, and I wanted to help others, much like you. I wanted to help others get through that and not have to experience what I experienced. And so that's what led me to mental health. Um, and that intellectual curiosity, right, just says, there's got to be a way to get through this, and so um, we all, deal with our hurt in many different ways. There's a list of defense mechanisms. You can Google it in terms of psychological defense mechanisms. One of my main ones was humor, so I
Mm,
would always make a lot of jokes and be the guy that everybody liked and wanted to be around. And so, but you have to be comfortable with yourself when there's nobody there to listen to the jokes. You got to be comfortable with yourself when there's nobody for you to have fun with, and you got to be okay with that person in the mirror. And I think that's the biggest challenge, and I think that's the point and purpose of your book, because when you're in those private moments, when you're in those moments by yourself, when you have to face your demons because there's nobody there to distract you,
mhm.
being able to read your words would be a wonderful way to be able to center yourself in that moment and be able to deal with the emotions that come up when you're thinking about past hurts.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, that was my diatribe.
You know what we just experienced? Your heart just opening so eloquently and feeling safe to be able to do this virtually, I mean, to the world. So I just want to commend you and send you lots of light and love for the moment you just shared with us because it was very special.
Well, thank you, thank
Mhm.
you. It was your words that it made me feel comfortable enough and safe enough to be able to share that. So not a lot of, well, now everybody watching this program just, just
Everybody knows.
it's out there now, but
Hmm.
yeah, there's not a lot
Hmm.
of people that that
Ellis, I have, this is related,
Mhm.
um, but as a professor, I review my student evaluations, and they write, Dr. Van has such a soothing voice, it puts me to sleep. So I don't want you going to sleep. But they also say that I create a safe space, and so thank you for affirming that. That there
Absolutely.
are safe spaces.
You know what? When I was in graduate school,
Mhm,
one of the things that stuck out to me because when you're just kind of behind the scenes, when you're training to be a counselor, one of the things that they encourage you to do as a counseling student is to go through counseling on your own, right? Because you have to experience it from the patient side. Thank you, Sherry. Um, you have to, they want the thinking is you have to experience from the patient side so you'll have more empathy when
mhm.
you're the counselor. And so if you don't know what the patient experience is like, you know, it can cause a blind spot for
Yes.
you as a counselor. So when I was going through it, one of the things when I was talking through kind of past hurts and from my childhood, and I said, well, I had intellectualized a lot of the experiences, right? Because I was like, oh, and I was able to diagnose it and dissect it and give reason and meaning. And I was doing all of those wonderful things that they teach you in school.
Mhm.
And my counselor stopped me and she said, there's a difference between rational knowing and emotional knowing. And I'm saying that to you, and I'm saying that to our audience when we're talking about, because the purpose of this show and the purpose of this conversation is really to connect the physical with the mental, right? And we're going to talk a lot. We're on blackdoctor.org, and there is a lot of physical things we could talk about in terms of Black Americans that disproportionately impact us. We could talk about the social determinants of health and how that impacts us. We could talk about the impact racism has had on our health conditions and Black people around the world. And we are going to continue to have those discussions. But also, if you are not whole mentally, if you have not resolved the mental challenges and are able to face the mental challenges that we have every day, it's going to impact our health. And so Dr. Van and her book, Dr. Van and her upcoming series that we're going to have here on blackdoctor.org is to help people get to that point where they can find that mental space of peace and tranquility and find that space that you found those years ago when you wrote that first poem, It Hurts.
Yes. You what you're saying is that, and what we will address is, the work starts in the heart. We
Yeah.
think the brain is running things. And I apologize to anybody out there in the neuro specialty who believes that. But the reality is, and I'm a heart math certified instructor, and the science around how powerful the heart is. And the heart has a brain, the heart has brain cells. It's electrical, but it also has brain cells. And this energy can go 3 feet out. Um, your
Mhm.
heart energy. So whatever you're feeling in your heart, other people are going to feel. The brain, the energy only goes about an inch from the top of the head. So we have to take care of this heart. We have to love ourselves. We have to be compassionate. Compassion meaning treating yourself like you would your best friend that you like. Okay, best friend that you like. So
Right.
that's where it starts. And so we're going to do a lot of heart work, and you know, it's going to mean that we're going to get vulnerable, just like
Yeah.
Alice and I were today. But this is a safe place,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on virtual, and yes, it's recording, but Alice and I can tell you the experience we had is not unique. We're connected in incredible incredible similar ways. And so I'm up for the journey, and I'm just excited about it.
Well, I'm here for the ride with you, and so I want to make sure that we get people that don't have the book already, that we give them the opportunity to buy it. Thank you for that change. So it's going along the bottom of the screen, and make sure you get a copy of that book. And even if you don't watch our programming that we're going to have here, get the book, right, and find that space to heal, because I think that if we can heal ourselves and mentally, um, particularly about think past transgressions, right? Because we know that living today is challenging, right? We've got a pandemic, so we got to every time we walk out of our house, we got to be we're worried about, am I going to catch COVID, right? If I interact with people, am I going to catch COVID? You know, if you're not vaccinated, you know, you're feeling that pressure to get vaccinated, and you still might be unsure. If you're vaccinated, you might be angry at people that aren't. You know, so there's all this. We got this political pressure, and then there's so much out there that we have to deal with on a daily basis. That having a space, carving yourself out the moments, whether it's watching Dr. Van's show or on your own reading her book, having that moment to be able to center yourself is going to go a long way into you being able to handle those challenges that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And so I think it's really, really important. To make sure that we have tools, right? We've got tools. We got hammers and nails in the wall. We've got, if somebody needs surgery, we got scalpels to cut off the body. There's tools for everything. Her book is a tool for healing and healing the soul and healing the mind and healing the spirit. And that's why we have her here today to kind of talk about that and what's the next step. So what are the next steps for you? I'm doing a lot of talking. What are the next steps for you? Is there another book in the works? Are you going to be doing a book tour? Where can we get some more of this?
Okay, so the second book started as soon as I decided where the cutoff point. So I've still been getting these challengings and energy surges. Last week was really a productive week. I wrote 5 last
Oh,
week.
wow.
Yeah, so I'm anticipating. And my husband used to own a bookstore. He says, you can't say when a book is coming out. Well, I'm going to say it's most likely in the spring. And
Okay.
it'll be a smaller, it won't be 100. It may be 25 to 50 that in that book. I'm having book launches and readings. I'm being invited to read at certain events. I even did a book event at a wine tasting last night. So, you know, I am thinking outside of the box, and
Right.
I'm getting incredible responses. Yeah, I'm going to do an electronic book. So I want it to be accessible to readers all over the world. And so it's slow because I'm self-published, but I
Right.
want to do it right.
No, it's absolutely, and this is a, you know, I want to make sure that people recognize this is a label of love, right? And so you are getting these creative moments
Mhm.
and you're leaning into them, and a lot of us get those creative moments and don't, right? How many great ideas, the best ideas get lost in you know, I've had some wonderful ideas that I've lost because I just didn't write them down, and I go, oh, what was that? Oh man, it was such a great idea and I never did anything with it. And so the fact that you're having those moments and you're mindful enough to stop,
Yes.
right, and lean into that moment. And if we do that as a people, that's where our breakthrough could be, right? That's where our next job could be. That's where our if we're having in a bad relationship, that's where our next relationship could come from. That's where our next wherever could come from if we stop in those moments and live in the moment and let the moment, you know, flow through us. I think it's wonderful. So I appreciate the fact that you're doing that. We all are, because we all appreciate it, because now we've got this wonderful book that we can get from you. And number 2, I'm looking forward to that one too. So
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to, I almost interrupted and say, preach, Ellis, because that's exactly what you're doing. And one point I do want to drive is that you mentioned quiet time. Quiet time is like a miracle drug, a miracle treatment. You just need I'd say start with 3 minutes a day. Set the timer on your phone and just sit quietly to quiet your mind. And you make better decisions. You're nicer to get along with. You're happier.
Right.
You just see the world in a different way if you just quiet your mind. And you don't have to sit for an hour. I say start with 3 minutes. The important part is do it regularly, do it daily.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I just want to say that your journey, and if you're just joining us, you missed the wonderful journey that she shared with us earlier in the program. So please go back and watch it. It is phenomenal to have a fully successful career and still have this moment that says, you know what, there's still more that I should be doing and could be doing. And just to take that energy and go with it is phenomenal. So I want to commend you again for that. I also want to make sure that if you don't have the book, go get it. Go get the book. It's called Regala Healing. It's self-published, and she's not, this is really about sharing the love and all of the self-affirming. There's some self-affirming poems that she read earlier tonight. There is that poem that is open and just transparent that we all need. And then so there's 100 in there. So you can find what you need in the moment that you need it in that particular book, and just keep that with you. So thank you all. Thank you everybody for joining us. Everybody that was in the comment section in the chat room, y'all have been wonderful, so supportive. So it just really, really, really great. Dr. Van, I'm gonna let you have the last word. This is your show about your book, so you could take us home.
Oh, wow. So, first of all, I'm just going to ask everybody to take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. And one thing I'd like to say is beginning today, find a way to treat yourself as your best friend. And don't feel that it's selfish. Don't feel that you have to ignore someone else in order to take care of yourself and love yourself. Just a little bit every day is going to make a wonderful difference. And I look forward to taking this journey of self-care, self-love, self-discovery, self-reveal with you. And I just want to thank Alice for being just a creative mind and partner in this journey. So thank you. And blackdoctor.org.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us, and look out. We're going to get more of Dr. Van here on blackdoctor.org. So be on the lookout for the announcement of her program, and we'd love to have each and every one of you back to join her circle here on blackdoctor.org. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.